Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about general dimensions. So let's go ahead and start a part. And in the part mode, let's create a 2D sketch on XY plane. Let's create some lines and circles and arcs and rectangles so that we can dimension them. So let's create a line here starting from the origin point. Maybe it's a vertical line here, and maybe it's a line with an angle here, and a horizontal line here, another vertical line here, and um, and then maybe we end that line. Maybe we just draw another horizontal line here, and then maybe we draw a vertical line here, and then actually let's delete this vertical line and use another vertical line here, but end it here, and then hold the left mouse button and create an arc as we drag the mouse, and that way we created an arc, so we can talk about that too. And from the end point of this arc, we can create another line and finish on the origin point of the geometry so that we have a closed geometry. There are no openings around the lines. And also let's put a few circles. Notice that I can use the midpoints of these lines that I created previously. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to put it in a random spot here, maybe a random spot here. So I can just move them around. We can apply some dimensions to these circles and lines later. So let's look at where the dimension option is available in the user interface. In the constraint menu, on the left side of the constraints, you have the dimension, which is general dimensions with the D shortcut on your keyboard. You can see the preview of the command. Let's click on that, or let's right click and cancel that. We can right click and find the general dimension option on the right click menu as well. Let's use this one and click on that, and now you can apply a dimension on the vertical line we created here. I'm just going to right click and say cancel, and I'm going to activate the general dimension again to show you something else. I can hover on these lines and I can see which lines I can create, I can dimension. And now I am coming here, and notice that I can also highlight the beginning point, end point, and the midpoint of the line. So I can use those as references too, but I am intentionally selecting the entire line to dimension. So now Autodesk Inventor just assigned a random dimension as I was drawing the lines. I can just click again, place the dimension, and then edit dimension window will appear on the screen. So now I can enter, say, 12 millimeters. Now this line is dimensioned. And then I can come here, say I can dimension this line, but this time this line is not a vertical or a horizontal line. It is a line with an angle. So if I click on the entire line, notice that I don't see the preview of that dimension. But if I just drag it to the left, I see that Autodesk Inventor is applying a vertical dimension. Or if I drag it to the top, Autodesk Inventor is applying a horizontal dimension. Sometimes this is what you want to use to dimension an angled line, but a lot of times you want to dimension the entire length of the line. So to be able to do that, you come closer to the line, and as you're not seeing the preview of the dimension, you click again. That's when it applies a dimension to the full length of the line with the angle taken into the consideration. So now this is, let's say, 15 millimeters. Now notice that we applied an angle to this line, but this line is still not fully defined because it is still asking for more information. So let's say this line is now, there's an angle between this line, for example, maybe 135 degree. Yeah, there's an angle dimension now in between this vertical line and this angled line. Now notice that this line is black, which means that it is fully defined. I can right click and click OK. Notice that also the horizontal line on the top side is now fully defined because of the constraints that Autodesk Inventor applied, because I used the beginning and end points of other lines, so it applied automatic constraints. That's why it saved me time and it fully defined that line for me as I was dimensioning the other lines. But I can always come here and dimension this. Let's say I want this to be 12 millimeters. Notice that it updated the other lines on the right side accordingly as I enter the dimensions. Now I can let's get an error from Autodesk Inventor. Right now, these two lines are both they're both fully defined. What happens if I try to apply an angle between them? Well, Autodesk Inventor will say that this is going to be over constraining the sketch. You don't need it. If you get this fault for some reason as you are exercising at home, don't be alarmed. This just means that you've already taken care of that part. You don't have to do it again. So let's come here and maybe dimension this line. So I can again click on the full length of the line, but I can also take advantage of the beginning, end, and midpoints of the line as well. So I can, for example, dimension from midpoint to this endpoint, and I can say this is 10 millimeters. And now it is fully defined. It's got a location, designated spot in space. But I don't frequently see a line being dimensioned like that, but you never know. I just wanted to show that. But again, we can click on the full length of the line and assign, let's say, 20 millimeters. Now that line is also fully defined. Let's click OK and get out of that command. The reason why I did that because I wanted to show a few other things. I can always go back into these dimensions and edit them. If I click on this, for example, it is highlighted. But if I double click, I can change this 12 millimeters to 13 millimeters. Notice that if I click one time, it is highlighted, but also when I click one time, I can also change the location of the dimensions as well. So for example, if I click on it one time, it is highlighted now. Now I see the sign next to the cursor. I can click on that dimension and maybe relook and just move the number here to the bottom side, top side, or I can just kind of get it out of the way. Sometimes if you're dimensioning in a really complex sketch, there are dimensions everywhere and it's hard to see them, and you can kind of drag it around and try to put it in a position where it's more clear to see. So for example, this 20 millimeter dimension is kind of in the way of this circle that I'm going to dimension next. So I want to come here and maybe drag it down so it's out of the way. Again, you can do the same thing with the angle as well. So you can come here and then move it around, and you can maybe dimension it the way you want to dimension it. So let's dimension the arc this time. Again, if you don't see the options you want to see when you click on the right-click menu, when you want to see the right-click menu, you might be in an active command. If you're not sure, if you're just starting to learn this software, you can always hit escape on your keyboard to make sure that you do not have any kind of active command. So right now we're out of any command that we had before, and now we right-click and select General Dimension. And now let's say we will assign a diameter to this arc here. Right now it says 7.228 or something. So let's say this is 8 millimeter diameter for this arc. But right now it is still not fully defined. I wonder what the problem is. Oh, it is. So it doesn't know where it's located. So there's a line here. There's a line here. I think it wants me to define where this arc starts and where it ends. So let's dimension that. This time, I want to dimension this both of these lines, but I can't select both of them because this is a separate line and this is a separate line. So now I can take advantage of those beginning and end points of these two lines. So for example, instead of selecting the entire line, I can select the midpoint, beginning point of the first vertical line, and I can select the end point of the second vertical line. Yeah, right here. So let's say this is 16 millimeters. Notice that now the arc is fully defined because now it's got a space. I cannot move it around. Now it has a diameter, which means that it's got a designated size, but also it has a beginning and end point. Notice that the only two things that we haven't dimensioned are the circles. So let's general dimension, come here, and let's say this is 4 millimeter in diameter. I just clicked on the circle and assigned the diameter for that circle, but it is still not fully defined because right now I just right clicked and click OK to get out of that command. Right now I can't make the circle larger or smaller, but I can move it around by holding the origin point of the circle. And as I'm moving around, I can see that the reference lines are appearing based on the beginning, end, and midpoint of the other lines. So let's use the vertical and horizontal lines we created as references to locate this circle in the design. Let's say general dimension. I can click on the circle, and then as the circle is active, I can also click on the horizontal line on the top. Now I can assign, say, 4 millimeter away from that horizontal line on the top. It is still not fully defined because, let's get out of that command, I can move it, I cannot move it up and down, but I can move it left and right, which means that it doesn't know its location based on, from the left. It doesn't know its location on that aspect as well. So we have to assign a dimension, distance, using maybe this vertical line on the right side. See, I'm right clicking. It's not showing me the general dimensions. I must be in an active command. Maybe I have a line selected accidentally. If you're just starting to use a CAD software, this happens frequently. So you can just hit escape command, escape key on your keyboard a few times, and you will get out of the command. And now right click and click on general dimensions. And this time I'm not going to click on circle. I'm going to click on the midpoint of the circle, and I'm going to click on the vertical line on the right hand side and say that this is 7 millimeter away from that vertical line on the right. Now notice that the circle is fully defined. And we covered the constraints before, so if you would like to apply a diameter to this circle, you can by using general dimensions, but also you can select the circle and you can hold Control key on your keyboard and select the other circle and you can hit equal. Now the diameters are going to be equal. But if you don't want to do that, you can undo and you can just general dimension and click on a circle and assign a different diameter. But if you want to assign a diameter, just know that you don't have to use diameter as your dimensioning unit. You can always assign a radius. So as you click on the circle, you're creating a diameter, but before you create it, you can right click and see that dimension type is active in your right click menu. Now diameter is active, but you can click on radius and use radius to dimension the circle. So let's say this is a 4 millimeter radius circle. Now it's still not fully defined, so let's click on the circle. From the left side, maybe it is 8 millimeter away. From the bottom side, it is also 8 millimeter away. So I can hit enter, and after I enter 8 millimeters, or I can simply come here and select on this line. Let me delete everything first. I can simply select one of the dimensions I created before, and I can use that as a reference. So for example, this is apparently labeled as D11 dimension. We're going to talk about parameters in the following videos, but just a quick tip that I can also use the existing dimensions as references to save time. So instead of entering 8.25 or something, I can simply come here and click on 8 and say this is also going to be 8 millimeters. Now, if I go back, say OK and get out of that command. If I go back and click on this 8 and update that to 10 millimeters, this is also going to update. If I click on this and update that to 5 millimeters, this is also going to update. But we're going to talk about that later. Let's delete this and apply another dimension from the midpoint from the horizontal line on the bottom. Let's say it is 8 millimeters. Let's click OK and click on this line, and let's say this is 7 millimeters away. Now everything is fully defined. We drew lines and we drew arcs and circles, and we dimensioned them using the radius or diameter or vertical lines and angled lines, and we created the sketch. Now it is fully defined. We will finish the sketch, and now we can apply a modeling action. We can click on extrude. It is asking us which side we want to extrude. Let's extrude this side and click OK. Now the 3D object is created and we cover the dimensions. We're going to talk about dimensions more in the future. We're going to design some complex geometries and complex models, and we're going to dimension everything. Dimensions are very important and frequently used, and we're going to talk about some other tips as well to be more productive and efficient with our designs. See you in the next videos. Thank you.